Today's lesson is on the surface areas of prisms and cylinders. So prism, again, we're going to have two congruent faces, which are the bases that lie in parallel planes. Other faces are called lateral edges. Now the focus of this chapter is going to be surface area and volume, and so I'm going to focus more on the actual total surface area, where sometimes we'll have problems regarding lateral area, which is specifically perimeter times height. But right, we've got a top and a bottom base, so those are our bases, two bases, and then the other three, typically rectangulars, happen to be the perimeter times the height of the figure. So we just say surface area is two base plus perimeter times height. In this picture, we have a net to show us that a little bit better. They have this box where our base is this 5 by 2. Both kind of the closest side to us and the furthest, and then the rest of it is going to be unrolled. So we've got surface area is 2 times the base, because we have 2 of those, plus perimeter times height, right? 5, 2, 5, 2 forms perimeter of this 5 by 2. And so we solve each piece at a time, solving for base, solving perimeter, and plug it in. So base is length times width, so 5 times 2 is 10. Perimeter is 2 length plus 2 width. So I get 2 times 5 plus 2 times 2. 10 plus 4 gives us 14. And so now 2 times 10 plus 14 times the last number I haven't used yet, which is 6, gives us a surface area total of 104 centimeters squared. Now, surface area always comes in units squared. So typically I'll write it as a capital S with a subtext of an A because of that, to remind me that it's a area, surface area, right? When we move into volume, we'll get into those units when we get there. Next, no picture, but find the surface area of a right rectangular prism with height 7, length 3, width 4. So same exact thing we just did, no picture, but they give us the information. Surface area is 2 base plus perimeter height. Base is length times width, which is 3 times 4, so it's 12. Perimeter is 2 of the 3's plus 2 of the 4's, so 6 plus 8 is 14. And then we got 2 times 12 plus 14 times the 7 gives us 24 plus 98. Sounds like 122 inches squared. Again, we're getting a lot more labels in this chapter, so make sure you have your labels. That is going to be a big part of the answer. Next, find the surface area of the prism. And now, generally, I like to go with the bottom being the base. So this 12 by 6 will be my base. And the top, same thing, 25 is going to be my height. So surface area is 2 base plus perimeter height. The base is 6 times 12, which is 72. And again, these are rectangle. That's why it's length times width. Maybe it looks parallelogram, but yeah, rectangular. And then perimeter is 2 24s, 2 6s plus 2 12s, pardon me, which is going to be 12 plus 24 is 36. And then now doing the total, 2 times 72 plus 36 times the height of 25 gives us 900 plus 144 is 1044 inches squared. One last of these prisms before we move on to cylinders. Okay, the surface area, again, the area of the base, like you pick which one's the base, and then the rest of it you're doing with these. Most of your calculations for perimeter and base are using those two pieces that you choose to be your base, and then the missing label we haven't used yet is going to be your height. So even if I chose to do 24 and 25, like this is my base, that's the other side, this would be my height, we could still calculate and find the exact same answer. Anyway, I'm going to use 32 and 24 again as my bases, the length and width, pardon me. So we've got 32 times 24 is going to give us 768. Perimeter is 2 32s plus 2 24s, so 48 plus 64 sounds like 112. And so we got 2 times 768, pardon me, plus 112 times the 25, give us a total of 4,336 feet squared. Noting that the number is pretty large, you will definitely need a calculator when we get to the test, whether it's because we're using the pi button in the next formula or because some of these numbers can get a little bit on the larger side of things. Next, we've got a cylinder, which is a good example, would just be kind of like a can of vegetables. just because they're not really indented like pop cans are nowadays. But so if you imagine this, we've got the base on top, matching base on bottom, and when you say cut off the top and bottom lid and unfold, if you cut a vertical, you realize it's actually a rectangle, even though it's curved around so that it forms the side of the cylinder per se. It actually is a rectangular piece. So this area here is going to be circumference of the top times height. It's also the same as the circumference of the bottom, which is the same thing as perimeter times height. However, because we're using non-polyhedron, right, our formula simplifies. 2 base plus circumference times height simplifies to being 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. So we just need two pieces, radius and height, and plug them in. I'll generally use this second part and just plug them in. So 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. 10 is radius, 16 is height. Plugging it in, 2 pi times 10 squared plus 2 pi times 10 times 16, 100 times 2, 200 pi, 2 times 10, 20 times 16, 320 pi. So 200 plus 320 gives us 520 pi. Large numbers. I like to use just the pi key on my calculator, so this is not just 3.14. It is not the rounded version. To get 1,633.63, this may be rounded off at the second decimal, but that is my answer for that. Those labels in inches squared. One more of these because they're a little more straightforward. We could be given the diameter. In this case, you got to divide by 2 to get radius is 6. But then we're ready to go because we want radius, not diameter in this case, because that's just how the formula is. 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. Plugging in 6, 2 pi times 6 squared plus 2 pi times 6 times the 11. So 66 times 2, 132 pi plus 36 times 2, 72 pi. Sounds like 204 pi, which is 640.88 inches squared. Now on to some slightly more difficult problems here. What if we had what they consider an oblique? Right? So this would be like if you had a stack of CDs and maybe it was slanted to the side, right? You kind of slightly push them to the side. So what they give us, if we got 8, 13 is no longer our height because it is not perpendicular to the ground. It is a slanted value, right? If we connected these lines here, I'll kind of show you quick. If we connected those lines, it would basically be a parallelogram. My lines aren't perfect here, but that would be a parallelogram, and wouldn't be the height of our parallelogram. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring that 13 over to this side, and then I did a little measure below of 5 is the distance away from this to get a right angle height. And now we have height plus height squared plus 5 squared equals 13 squared, and we can calculate the actual height, this would be per se maybe a slant height of the cylinder. So 5 squared plus h squared is 13. This is actually one of the common Pythagorean triples. H is 12. If you need to solve, here's how you would solve. Just, this is a squared, this is b squared. 5 squared plus h squared is 13 squared. Subtract the 25 to get h squared is 144. Therefore, square root of 144 is 12. And now we're ready to plug it in, right? Pi r, it's still 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h, right? Now that we have both pieces, so plugging it in, r is 8, h is 12. So 2 pi r 8 squared plus, 2 pi 8 squared plus 2 pi 8 12 gives us a total of 320 pi, calculating it for 1005.31 centimeters squared. Now we'll do one more of these slants, but it will be with the rectangular prism. So this will be an oblique prism, and again we've got 7 over here for this distance, we've got 12 and 6. This 25 is what's going to also repeat over here for our hypotenuse in order to find the height. Okay. So just a little note there. So 7 squared plus 8 squared is 25. This is another Pythagorean triple, not as common, so we'll work it out. Minus 49 from each side. 625 minus 49 gives us 576. And 576 is actually 24 squared. So height is 24. And now we have a 6 by 12 that we're doing the perimeter of, the area of the base, right? Because now we do 2 base plus perimeter height. as just a reminder, because we were in cylinders for a second. So base is 6 times 12 is 72. And then perimeter of that, which we've done similarly, 2 times 12 plus 2 times 6 is 24 plus 12 is 36. And then lastly, plugging those into the formula, 2 base plus perimeter height gives us 2 times 72 plus 36 times 24 gives us 1,008 inches squared. Now, one last type of problem we may run into is the word problems. These are the word problems where typically we'll be given one, maybe even no direct answers for length, width, height type values, dimensions, and they'll give us typically the volume, and they'll give us relationships. So reading this out here, the height of a right rectangular prism is twice the width, and the length is 3 times the width. Now again, right rectangular prism just means we are not oblique like the last two problems where we have to like find the actual height, right? It's standing straight up. Perpendicular to the ground is what they mean, right angle to the ground. So we've got 2w equals length. We've got 3w equals, 3w is length, 2w equals, I missed, height. Surface area is 88, so we need to find the length, width, and height of the prism. So those two equations I said, height is 2 times the width, length is 3 times the width, and then we're going to find base, but we need to plug in so that we have only one variable. So length times width, length is 3 width, so 3 width times width is 3 width squared. Perimeter, 2L plus 2W equals 2 times 3W plus 2W, 6 plus 2 is 8. So 8 width is our perimeter, 3 width squared is our base, and now height we already have is 2 width, so plugging it in, 2 times base plus perimeter height equals surface area, it gives us 2 times the 3W squared we just found, plus 8W times 2W equals 88, right? They gave us the surface area. So now 2 times 3 is 6W squared, 8 times 2 is 16, and we have 2W, so 6W squared plus 16W squared gives us 22W squared, and then we're going to divide by 22 to get 88 divided by 22 is 4. What times what is 4? W is 2. Technically, solving with square roots, you get minus 2 as well, but our values cannot be negative, so I just immediately kind of knock that off. Knock that away. We can't do that. Next, fill it in. Height is 2 times that 2. Height is 4. Length is 3 times the 2. Length is 6. And adding our label of yards for each. And that wraps up today's lesson. Feel free to email if you have any questions.